Welcome. This is our last session, I believe. We saved the best for last. So happy to introduce Ioana Popa. She's become a dear friend on the board, and we're partners in crime in the community of practice. So happy to be able to start making these connections throughout the year. So I'm glad for you to get to hear from Ioana. So Ioana Popa is a MD, BCC, board certified life coach. She's also a certified IFS practitioner and psychosynthesis life coach, certified elite coach. She's a spiritual care provider and co-founder of Team for the Soul. If you've not discovered Team for the Soul, look her up. Her and her husband do a beautiful work. The Team for the Soul helps compassionate professionals and caregivers to regenerate daily, prevent burnout, complete grief, and transform toward higher potential through their online disciplinary programs, workshops, online groups, one-on-one coaching, and spiritual care. And our membership, and they have a membership program, so it's a continuous thing. So there's many other things I can and probably should say about Ioana, but I don't want to take up any more of her time. So please welcome Dr. Ioana Popa.
Thank you so much for being here and for staying all the way to the end. I know it's been an intense, lot of programming through the days, so I'm really excited to be here. And one of the things that stuck in my mind is talking about memories. As we talked in the plenary yesterday, there was a moment in about 30 years ago where the communists fell in Romania, and as a medical student, it was something like extraordinary, like we never thought, first of all, it was going to fall. And how do we help? So we ended up in the hospital. So we're in the trenches in the hospital operating room. Wounded people were coming, you could hear the shotguns and whatnot. It was pretty intense. And it lasted for 5 days. And then communists fell. And then, that kind of event went over and moved on with my life. And then COVID happened. And it was not 5 days. Were months and months and months. Now, some of us, including myself, we're home. I switched. I was not a frontline person, and I switched. And in the same time, there were frontline people that are every day, for years. And I thought, those 5 days were intense for me. Can you imagine for a year? So this is where my husband and I were co-founded Team for the Soul 2019, but this is where it really clicked for us. Can I do something? I'm home online. Can I do something? And this program and helping people how to prevent burnout, and more than that, how to develop psychologically and spiritually, really grew out of that inspiration, I would say, from God. There was something I wanted to do. Talk about fixer parts, but it was more than that. It was something deeper that resonated. So with this, everything that we're going to talk about, is coming out of those experiences, and I'm really excited to share this with you. And I don't know about you, but I get distracted often, so if you wouldn't mind turning off the electronics and whatnot, if it's possible. I know it's the end, but it does help to kind of bring in community. This is a presentation that will involve, it's meant to be less intellectual. I mean, obviously there will be concepts that I'll share, but I really invite you really to take care for yourself as a person right now. It's been several days right now. We're done, almost done. Really just feel your body, your emotions, your heart, and just take care of yourself and use this as a place to nurture you. So it's giving back to you. So with that, I wondered, one time someone asked me, well, what's your favorite verse? If there's one verse in the Bible, what is that? And it popped into my mind. Jesus said to him, "You shall love your Lord and your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greater commandment. And the second is like this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." And I am really trying to navigate this. Sorry about that. 1 second. All right, this is scrolling the other way around. Okay, this computer, very good. So with that, if you're here, most likely something draw to you, and I don't know what the reasons for you to be in here, but I want to invite yourself to send an intention. Of course, I don't know your reasons for being in this particular workshop, but keep it in the back of your mind. But it's possible that a call similar to this, it's resonating. Want to help you love your God, love your neighbor, and love yourself. And it is possible also that you might be even specifically connected to this as well, this verse. The harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray to the Lord of harvest to send our laborers into his harvest. I'm sensing this is why we're all here at OCAMPR. You are laboring in Christ's vineyard, and I really want to honor you for doing that. And it is possible as well that you might also be drawn to this verse as well. Come to me, all you labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So if this resonates with you and is like, yes, this is kind of my place, great. If not, if you need to shuffle into a different room, this is the time. Time to move around. All right, so in this workshop, my intention and my hope and prayer for you and for all of us, including me, is to get the sense of, can we think of burnout as communion with God, preventing burnout as renewal with God and communion with God? And those are the goals for today. Can we get clarity about self-care and renewal blocks? And I'm going to share the 3 steps to prevent burnout. There's a lot of body of work, and as Joel mentioned, we're on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram bringing small tips and support for you in your work. But I'm kind of condensing the steps in here. And I'm hoping by the end you'll get a map out your daily regeneration blueprint, and you might have one already, so you can refine it, but in such a way that it's not going to be work. Like, we're not talking about here, okay, let me just think through. The exercise will be more tapping into something that's already there, that Joel before me presented, our true self, our nous, our awareness, or something that it's spacious inside, that's already peaceful, that's already calm, and we're going to tap into that. All right, now the theme as we wrap up this OCAMPR, and we talked about the liturgy, is really at the core communion with Christ. And here are the good news. We are created in the image and likeness of God. God is everywhere filling all things. Even right now, it's right here. Thank you, God. Reminding me to pray. I forgot to start praying as we had started this. But we know he's here. And we're meant beyond this 3-dimensional world. And for us, it's kind of like, yeah, no-brainer. We know we're meant for eternity. But it's great to remember this. And also that we are the grace. We're just the effect. We're not the cause. And God is the vine. God is grafting us onto the vine. So we need that regeneration is really much deeper and on a connection with God. And I would say through the liturgy, we get encapsulated over thousands of years what all our Christ and our predecessor have experienced in their faith, and we get to unpack it. And that's what we've heard pretty much in all workshops here, and this is just another fruit of that. In the liturgy, we're invited also to partake of the living waters. Christ said that we will never thirst again when we connect with that. And as we all heard also in the conference, it's not just a one-day event. We're not just going to come on Sunday for liturgy and communion to we get the living waters. It's a remembrance of that. But the goal ultimately is that we're going to live through that communion all the time. And, I've been thinking a lot of the theosis process and how do we understand the three phases of purification, illumination, and theosis. And my sense personally, and I'm sensing in our conversations here as well, many of the mental health methodologies, the psychological methodologies, are helping us with the purification process. Let me get to know my emotions. Let me get to know my thoughts. Let me heal my trauma. Let me really get balanced. But there's no direction. And with our faith is bringing the direction. So in almost like psychological methodologies are like the vehicle, but here you go. I got a new car, but where are we going? Now I got the car, and it's actually fixed, and it's working, the wheels, everything. And then where am I going? Oh, I can just turn around everywhere. And that's a bit of the confusion that we're seeing in our world. Everyone is looking towards healing, and then what? There's no pointing towards. And this is where we're invited in the liturgy to connect with that. And in the liturgy, we encounter Christ, the living God, through communion. And we are charged to go out into the world and live like we've all been hearing, starting with Shmemen, the liturgy after the liturgy. And that's such an amazing way of thinking about this. And with participation in the liturgy, right, as I mentioned earlier, obviously, we're preaching to the choir. You know this. This is not just for Sunday, but every day, every moment. And what I'm presenting here today is there is the background and the thinking about it, but what I want us to do is a little bit, or how do we do it on a practical level, and also to open the conversation for us to think how we do this beyond just the therapy or our own experiences. So this is where I moved. I love the distinction between primary and secondary theology. I mean, we're all meant to be theologians. Theologians are the ones who are praying to God. So here we are. The secondary theologies, we learn about God from shared experience of others, and we had amazing shared experience, even in just those past 3 days. And primary theology is you and I. We personally encounter the living God. So here we are. So translate this into our workshop goals. Clarity about self-care and real blocks. That could be said, well, it's clarity about what can get us disconnected from God, from being liturgical beings, not just on Sunday, but every day, every moment. The second, and my numbering here, just ignore that, is like, oh dear, everyone is a 1. 3 steps to prevent burnout. It's really 3 steps to reorient ourselves to God as liturgical beings every moment after we left the liturgy and the church. And number 1 again, which is number 3, map out your daily regeneration blueprint, is really how do we reestablish our daily rituals to stay in communion with God? And how do we use that, all the psychological methodologies in our faith to do that? All right, so we go to liturgy, and I don't know about you, but on our best Sundays, right, we all have those wonderful Sundays when we feel connected to God, we feel so renewed. We want to pour out our mind, our hearts, our body, our soul, right, into working and serving others. We love helping, and we start saying yes to many more activities. So after OCAMPR, just wait, right? The level of connection, can we do this? Can you get this project? It's going to be an amazing effervescent energy, which is wonderful. We get connected, we feel alive. And then, since we're very good at helping, more and more people are going to ask for our help. We're going to stretch out and overcommit, and at some point we realize maybe we have too many balls in the air. By then it's a little bit too late. Anyone done that? I mean, I burned out twice, so I'm kind of like, yes. And then we start pushing past our bedtime. Okay, how often we do that to keep our commitments. Start getting tired, but still try to smile. I mean, we're an icon of God. Of course, first of all, we're happy, right? We're tired. We're seeing someone else. We're all smiling. It's not forced. It really feels. But inside, how many times we're hurting? And we start pushing regeneration and self-care for later. I cannot do it today. Can I just get to bed? And that's it. Forget 15 minutes of prayer. That sounds wonderful. I don't have time. Just for later. And then the weekend and vacation comes, and if you're lucky, you might have a regeneration time, but maybe not. Maybe your children might get sick. Maybe you got an emergency call. Maybe there's a neighbor. Maybe, I don't know, your spouse might be grouchy. Sebastian is never grouchy. But you never know, right? There's a lot of things that could happen. And often, some things happen and we cannot fully regenerate in the weekend or that vacation. And we get tired and we get stressed and we get more sick and don't feel the same joy as before. And we might even start accumulating resentment, exhaustion, stress. Anyone been there? Stop looking forward to things like, can I just please, I don't want to hear any more, no more human beings. And then why? I mean, on a physiological level, this might not be news, right? We are one soul, mind, heart, and body. And it's true that our mind is complex and we have many facets, many parts, but in a sense, it's one, right? There's one mind to it. But without self-care and regeneration, we constantly tend to live now in the activating system, nervous system, sympathetic. I don't know, any biology geeks in here? Parasympathetic, sympathetic. So it's the fight or flight. All right, and then in time, we get to chronic stress. What's interesting about chronic stress is we actually have more energy at the beginning. We all of a sudden feel good because the stress, all the hormones are going to pull out energy from our reserves and actually feel more energetic. So you feel like, okay, I'm done, I'm good, I can keep going. But then what happens, it erodes our energetic reserves, and this can lead to decreased immunity. We heard this throughout the weekend, and also sickness, and can lead to burnout. And this can lose our joy and energy. And in my assessment, this stress, this burnout, has some other popular terms like midlife crisis, in spiritual realm, dark night of the soul. Those are just popular terms, but what it happens is it's a slow process when we're not connected to the vine. We stop becoming liturgical beings anymore, and we are disconnected, and then we just become, like automatons. And we have to some point to really push through it. But, after my first burnout, I thought, this will never happen to me. Well, guess what? It happened. Without change, we tend to fall into the same kind of condition pattern, so we're going to come back over and over until the second time, like, oh, this is again burnout. Okay, I got it now. I hope. So then we feel we're running behind the schedule. We have difficulty relaxing, even when we have time to do so. We might feel exhaustion in cycles and burnout and confusion about life directions. How many people maybe you've encountered, and this might happen to you or the people you serve. So I just want to broaden the umbrella. How many times people are like, I don't know, I'm in the right vocation. And all of a sudden they have the apathy, nothing interests them. I need to change. When it's possible, there is burnout. When I quit psychiatry, my first burnout, I didn't think I was burnout, actually. I thought I need a vocation change. And mind you, probably was the case. But I came back to psychiatry, so that made me think, oh, maybe that was just burnout, right? So just a thought to consider. And I call this self-giving side effect and the dilemma of the passionate but tired Christian. And here's the paradox, that this is not coming out of a necessarily sinful nature. And this is not coming because we don't love God. Actually, it's coming because we love God so much, and we want to give, and we want to give, and we want to give, and we're forgetting that we're finite human beings. And Christ was giving and giving and giving, but he had a little bit of advantage, He was also God, not just human. So with that, but even Christ stopped. Even Christ stopped and went into the desert, and he regenerated himself. So most of us, because we're compassionate and want to keep giving, we are pushing into striving mode, which is kind of like talking about what Joel was talking earlier about parts. We get even more into the sympathetic fight or flight mode. So, and this is our can lead obviously to burnout. So the framework that I use is we are in burnout if we're ignoring the needs of the body. And again, there's a lot of discussion in OCAMPR this weekend about what our body needs, how do we listen through that, ignoring the needs of the mind. Sometimes we don't think about it, but we really work so much through our mind, through our left brain, a logical, A, B, C, D. But we don't really consider our right side of the brain, that it's more creative and playful. So we think that we're engaging our brain, but just a part of it. Some parts of our brain are not engaged and they might need something different. How about ignoring or suppressing our emotions, right? When we do that, that can lead to burnout. This was actually me. I lived in my head until the 30s. Like, if you ask me, are you anxious? Like, no, what's that? I'm not anxious. Until one weekend, I'm like, I had my to-do list. And I'm like, well, what if I don't do my to-do list right now? What would happen? Boom. Oh, this is anxiety. I'm covering my anxiety with my to-do list. So it happens. So different people are having different, obviously, we're all wired differently, but also when we're not aligned with our soul, and ultimately we're not in communion with God. And this is why, as I bridge to the story that I started with and also what happened in the COVID, this is exactly why my husband and I, we started Team for the Soul. So I'll share a little photo here. Here's my hubby. He's right here. I'll put him on the spot. He's not going to like that. But we's a family of mission and ministry, and Sebastian does grief work, and I do my program, The Renewal in Action. And this is where I'm so passionate about helping compassionate but tired Christian to regenerate body, mind, heart, and soul, sustain the prayerful daily rhythm. How do we do that? We know we have to do it, but how do we do it not from striving and not from just an intellectual exercise, so that we can continue to serve Christ with joy, with energy, balance, peace of mind, without the fear of burning out. So here is that invitation, right, that we're going to feel peaceful and aligned. This is what our church is really telling us it's possible, that peace that surpasses all our understanding. It's already there. How can we feel energized and joyful? We're finite beings. It involves humility. There was again conversation this weekend about the need for humility. There was one pastor, Joyce Myers, I don't know if you know her. I love her. She's very funny. And she said one day, I have to remember, I'm not Holy Spirit Jr. I mean, yes, we're allowing the Holy Spirit to work through, but I'm finite being, and it's humbling, and I wish I could do more, but we have to allow to notice our limitations and really bring liturgy in our daily being and be those liturgical beings. So with that, without a need to record, I'm curious from your award, you could do just quick shout outs here. What are some of the biggest blocks in regeneration for you? Kids, time. Self-criticism.
I confuse doing God's work at work with taking care of myself. Like, I'm doing the right thing, so I must be taking care of myself.
I so relate to that. Someone actually asked me from church, well, when do you rest? This was before my first burnout. And I was like, I don't need rest. I'm just going to keep going. I'm doing all the things. God will help me regenerate. I just assume, because I love God, that I'm going to be regenerated. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I feel like I'm praying through my work, and I'm not. I'm
praying through my work, yes.
I'm mindful of God's work, but it's not the same thing.
Right. So someone shared that it might not be the same thing. Just because I'm feeling like I'm praying during work, I might not be actually regenerating. Yeah. So time, family, kids. Yes.
It's interesting. The Lord regenerated. He went off alone.
Exactly. The Lord regenerated. He went out alone. So that we have a great model here. Yes. Yes.
Speaking of which, something I don't do enough is, so in between sessions, I tend to check my technology all the time. Instead of just reading.
Yeah, so checking technology, right, in between sessions. And when we actually have a moment, we actually just check. Anyone else is doing that? All right. Yes. So can you see it? Yeah, we're all on the same boat here. Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to just quickly go over a few dilemmas and think if you can relate to that. And if you want to relate, you can even just raise your hand. Like, I know I have to do self-care and regenerate, but I'm too busy and I don't have time. Anyone here? All right. Absolutely. Of course you don't have time. You're so generous. You want to help others. And there are many needs in the world, right? It feels like the needs are endless. And then the word is out how good you are, and people are just going to flock around you and ask for more. But without taking time to regenerate, as I mentioned, I burned twice. So here's the good news. Renewal, if we think as communion with God, and it could be not just on a mind, but also emotional level and body level, and it's really helpful. But I want us to shift. We live in a culture where renewal, everything is on a project-based. right? Have you noticed projects, to-do list? Do you want one more thing on your to-do list? No, just honestly. No one wants one more thing on to-do list. So if I'm going to tell you, do more regeneration and put one more thing on your to-do list, you're going to say, yep, you're pleased, right? No one likes one more. But here's the amazing thing, that actually regeneration is not a project. I read this very interesting book. If you're interested in electronics and how to organize your life online right now, Building a Second Brain. It's a really cool book. It really blew my mind. But he made a very cool distinction between projects and life rhythms. Like eating healthy is not a project. It's part of our life rhythms. We want to have some standards, right? That's why a yo-yo diet never worked, because if you consider it as a project, then to lose weight, then you come back, revert to the same conditions. It's the same with regeneration and self-care, and being liturgical beings is not a project. So the way, for people that have time and can take some things off your plate, go for it. Some of us cannot, and then there's a way though to regenerate even while we're doing things. So that's the invitation for today. And obviously, preventing burnout is better than addressing it later. We all know that. But I hope you have some glimpses here, and you might already know this, but you can encourage, if you see that in yourself or others, to encourage them, don't wait until the burnout happens. It's much harder to recover. Dilemma number 2 has to do with, I'm not ready to do consistent self-care, as this is a very busy season for me. I'd rather wait for the weekend of vacation. This is, anyone done it? Oh, I'll just today I'm really tired. I'll do it in 2 days. All right. So with that, here is a psychologically interesting thing. What we're doing, we're actually postponing into the future. We're getting into the habit, someone was sharing a paper, of avoidance. When we push in the future, we develop this mental habit of putting it off for later. But that in itself, it's a habit. So when you're going to be on vacation, I don't know about you, but I have vacations where I have all this time. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do now? I mean, regeneration. I don't know. Oh, let me do this and this. It looks really cool, right? Because we tend so much to get into this habit of avoiding for later. But this is what our church is really sharing. We can only have, for our inner, and our church fathers talks about this in Mothers, we only have from our inner universe a sense of continuous now. If this makes sense, great. If it doesn't, if I twisted your brain, just think about when that Thanksgiving dinner comes, it's going to be experienced as another day, like a now. We might have flashy ideas about how this unfolds, but when actually it happens, it's just another now moment. So thinking that we're going to do something in the future, we are diverting our attention or focusing, and we're conditioning ourselves to actually not do it forever, because that future never comes. And it's the same with the past. And what I also love, and this is psychosynthesis, I love psychosynthesis as a psychological methodology because they talk not about the motivation, but about will, which is like, yes, we talk in our Christian world about will, but it gives a psychological underpinning of the will. And if you think about it, we only have access to action and will in the present moment, right? I cannot scratch my right ear tomorrow. Maybe if I remember, I put a timer, but now this is kind of amazing, from thought to action. This is the miracle of life, really, from thought, from something to an actual embodiment, to a movement. So it's only in the now. So this idea that I'm going to regenerate for later doesn't work. So it's better when we remember it, and we can talk about there's ways to put cues around in our environment to help us remember this, but we can just regenerate for a few minutes. Like if I remember I have some break, my husband sometimes laughs at me, I have an hour, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's like, well, how about 10 minutes of this? Then you do 10 minutes of that. And I cannot say no to 10 minutes of walking. My avoiding part cannot take a no. 10 minutes, I can do 10 minutes. So bring it down to smaller bites, and focusing on the moment is really important. because we all have access to hidden mini pockets of self-care. And I love our psychology presentation earlier. It talked about that. There are moments at the red light, there are moments at the grocery line where we can regenerate. I mean, you might not be able to do the 10 push-ups at the grocery line, but you might be in your office and still be able to do something like that, right? All right. Number 3, I love living life on purpose by giving, helping, serving others, and taking care of myself seems selfish. This is a hidden kind of dilemma. Anyone feels, I know I'm not selfish, but there's this tinge of selfishness and guilt. Anyone feels that? Am I the only one here? All right. So here's the thing, that we are all finite beings. And in a sense, as I mentioned earlier, it's just a realization that we are, and it's humbling, that we are finite beings. So replenishing, we are plugged into God. We are plugging into our source of life. Because we are not really regenerate. I truly believe that regeneration comes from God. From God, we are cooperating. So think about it. And the other piece to it is, when we're not regenerated, we get grouchy. We get more irritable. And even if we're smiling, our clients or parishioners or neighbors, they're going to pick up on that, right? They're like, oh, it's a little something off. So the more regenerated and refreshed, the more joyful we are, we can actually inspire other people. So another dilemma, I already know how to regenerate, but by now I'm too busy. I feel I lost any healthy routines. Have you been in seasons like that when you think you just got it and it's working and all of a sudden something changed? Someone gets sick, a child starts their soccer practice or whatnot. Anyone identifies that? All right. So with that, the good news is this. There's no way that we can lose our self-care routines. I was so touched by the presentation yesterday, the theological plenary, when it talked about memory. We don't lose it. It's in there. We have those inner memory of what's restorative. And we can actually access that. And that's kind of the exercise we're going to do today. Like, how do we get in touch with these moments and the wisdom that we already know that can help us adjust and find little fine-tunings, little steps here and there that can help us regenerate. Now, another one is, I already tried to regenerate in self-care. I did many programs and nothing really sticks. Have you experienced that before? Yeah. So that is interesting, because there are ways to learn to regenerate, to listen to your body, your heart, your emotions, your mind, and your soul. I use in psychology, they don't talk about soul, they talk about true self in some psychological methodologies. But this is the importance to remember that you can use your wisdom. Just because someone is telling you that, okay, you got to exercise or do this practice or that practice, try it for yourself. Is it working or not? It might be working or not. So trust your doctors, if you have a counselor or support, your mentor, your friends, and yourself to kind of develop that. And last dilemma. I'm so busy that even when I do have time, I don't know where to start. This is kind of like what I was sharing earlier with Sebastian. I don't know, I have an hour, I don't know what to do. I can do this. Yes? So the good news, you're not alone. And this is very common problem in our faith-based world. But again, by now you live long enough, even if you're just in your 20s, to know what has worked for you. So this is what we're going to do today. How do we pause for a second and really, really access the wisdom that you already have about what's restorative? And it will depend on season. I don't know if you've noticed this, but every season, things are changing for me. Like what I really appreciate was restorative maybe 2 years ago is not working for me now. So finding these ways to regenerate. Oh, there was one more. I think I mentioned this already, right? If I do it, I'm going to do it on my to-do list, and I feel stressed, I don't want to do that. And this is where we're going to talk. How do we regenerate without having to spend a lot of time? This is my favorite metaphor, an accordion style. And by the end, find out, even if you don't have all the elements by today, you're going to have the framework to think, okay, if I can take care of my body, heart, soul, and mind. And if I do have an hour in the morning, awesome, go for it, get your full thing. And we're working with this with the seminarians in the Holy Cross, because they're coming and they need to pray and they need to do that. And sometimes they only have, 5 minutes, half an hour, 10 minutes, right? The time could be very short. So with the accordion style, if you know what's important, you can do, okay, I'm just going to do this little much. Okay, so if someone might have a prayer rule, what's the foundational one that you want to do every day if you only have 5 minutes? But if you have more, you can do more. All right, so with all this dilemma, what do we do? The interesting thing is we cannot solve our problems. I love this quote from Einstein. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. That's why we wanted to think through the dilemmas a little bit and see, well, maybe there is another way. And this is also where I love our faith, because there's always hope. No matter how stressful we are, there's always hope. There's always a solution. It's only in our minds when we think there's no solution. But Christ is saying there are solutions. So instead of adding more projects and more to-dos, that's one option. If you have time, we can do this kind of daily renewal blueprint. So are you ready? 3 steps. Mina, if you're listening to me, Mina, our board member, said, I cannot be, I have to leave. He said, can you tell me the 3 practical steps? I said, nope, sorry, you're going to have to listen to this. So Mina, if you're listening, here we are. Okay, presence, balance, and rhythm. So let's unpack this for a second. All right. You might love this quote, might heard it or not. I love this from St. Seraphim of Sarov. Acquire a spirit of peace, and 1,000 around you will be saved. I had in an internal family system training, our trainer, who was not a Christian, I don't think, but he visited Italy. And he noticed that he shared this, was talking about presence and the self-qualities, and he said, there was this monk who just was walking in a train station. Now, this was a hustle and bustle train station in Italy, lots of people moving around, very active, and the monk appeared, and he was just so peaceful. And as he was walking, he noticed that people around him calmed down. And almost like he was witnessing that, he witnessed this wave of calm moving through it. And it reminded me of St. Seraphim of Sarov quote, and it really brings this idea, okay, if we're not going to use our fixer all the time to help others, is there some other tool? And from our faith, it is presence. It is sense of being. Liturgical beings, we are who we are, and we are going to impact others not just through our words, but also through our presence, through our body, through the way, non-verbally, right? And I love St. Augustine's quote, Sebastian, maybe you can help me here. I pray often, I pray all day long, and I use words only if needed, something like that. In other words, he was not talking, maybe I'm butchering this. But we don't need to talk to really impact people and to change. And that's really the invitation. All right, so are you ready for just a quick exercise? All right. I love our faith also because it invites introspection, invites us being quiet inside. And by the way, when you go inside, anything that I'm saying, you can let go to my voice. Like, this is not about my voice. It's about your relationship with Christ and tapping into that presence. But what I really want to invite us is this, and this is connected. I was so struck how Holy Spirit works in such ways, because everything that I'm hearing in the conference is kind of like all synchronizing. I do not expect our theological presentation to talk about memories and how the memories are encoded and how we bring them into the present, because that's exactly the exercise we're going to be doing. Because our memory works in such a way that we can access those very sacred moments. They're not gone from the past. Those experiences of glittering, of moments where you felt the presence of Christ all of a sudden, those awe moments, when you felt, I don't know, the light maybe was different, or maybe you were in nature, or by the ocean, or in the forest, or maybe you saw a child, or maybe you have a pet and you really connect. And what happens is, those are not external things that are happening inside. We already have everything inside from God. The image of God is already in us. It just resonates with us. It's a process of resonance. It's not a grasping process. We don't have to go outside of ourselves to bring that in. It just happens the first time just because we're resonating and we're paying attention to externals, but actually it's already inside. So all we're going to do here, and I like to engage our mind first. I'm going to explain what we're doing, and then you take your time, 2-3 minutes, not too long. The invitation is really to just bring one of those amazing, joyful moments where you just felt God's presence. Might have been in liturgy, might have been when you're taking communion, or any other moment. I gave you several examples, so you just pick one. Just raise your hand if you got it, if you got one of those moments. Yeah, all right. It's already. The good news is, it's exactly what we heard yesterday in the theological planner speaker. It's not gone. It's present in us. So here's the invitation. Just bring it on and just imagine yourself. We start with the past. Imagine yourself in that amazing moment. Just bring yourself right there. And just sense maybe there was a smell, how the air looked and feel, the sky, maybe if you were with another person. Just bring it on as if you were there. Use this amazing tool, our memory. And then just send this invitation, a gentle invitation to increase inside. Like really using your senses. Wasn't that amazing? And breathe in a little slower, just to allow communion with Christ. And just invite Christ, who's already present here. And thoughts might come in and out. Let them, watch them like clouds in the sky. Or emotions or body sensations. Stay in the space in between. In the joy of our Lord. And if you're experiencing that, raise your hand or a finger or something. All right? And if you don't, no worries. I mean, this is kind of a new thing to try, so no pressure. But just kind of let go of the externals now. If you see how it feels, first of all, in your body, and you can just say it out loud. What's it like to be back into that moment? How does it feel in your muscles, in your bones? I feel a sense of spaciousness right here. Anyone else? You can just jump right in. Engagement? Great. Anything else? There's no right or wrong, whatever. Calm? Light? Friend? Trembling? Okay. Is that okay? Comfort? Yeah. And just slowly, go ahead.
If I'm
Sleepy, yes. Yes, your body might need some, yeah, so sleepy. And invite the sleepiness to just observe that as well. And stay in the space in between. Someone is observing the sleepiness, so stay in that space, yeah. And then let go of the external now, and just realize that this is a quality that it's inside of us, and you might have not experienced it right now. It's okay. It takes a bit of practice, but it doesn't take 20 years in the desert. It does not. It's just like riding a bicycle, trying a bit, but we can then access it easily. And that's a gift that we can continue to nourish. So when you're ready, come back. All right, so before we go to the next step, any quick comments or questions, or what was it like? Was it like, oh my goodness, I'd rather have my thumb stuck in a car door than do this ever again? Or like, ooh, this is, yeah, any range, anything in this range? Yes?
It's really hard for me to relax or like meditate, but the idea that you gave me this something that I could imagine,
Yes.
a place that I felt God, felt peace, and that I could breathe in and out and know that I didn't have to stay in it for 10, 15, 20 minutes is really, really helpful.
That's great.
Doable for me.
Yes. So the comment was that knowing that don't have to meditate or contemplate for 10 minutes, but just have a quick visualizing this way or feeling God's presence feels reassuring, right? And like free. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
I was just going to comment on how initially, given the exercise, I was struck by, I don't think
joyful moments, but then it reminds me of our funeral service. There is no joy that is not mixed with grief, and how that's our present experience. And that using exercise to latch on to the joyful pieces, like knowing that it's complex.
Yes.
It's not
Right. That's right. So the comment is that not knowing at the beginning if there is just an unadulterated joy, but it's complex, but just this idea that it can nurture the joyfulness. Yes. And by the way, our brain, you might have heard this, is more wired for negative emotions in general. Is like, what is it? Negative emotions are like Velcro, and positive like Teflon. So all our positive emotions just go really fast. It's just how our brain, they did lots of research on that. But we can nurture those moments, or gratitude, that's the power of that. Yes, go. 10 minutes, thank you.
As I was doing the painting, I was starting to sense the healthy adrenaline from all the sugar I was eating.
Yes.
It made me say, okay, for that I need to give up coffee.
Yes, thank you. All right, was it another comment before we move on? All right, so here's what we can do. So hold on to that experience. Again, if you haven't experienced anything, there's no right or wrong. And this is, I'm repeating what I just did because we can do that at home. I don't recommend doing it while driving. Please don't operate machineries or use your garbage, just clean your garbage disposal. I'm just kidding. Just stay peaceful, and you might use some incense even, or something, a smell that is really important to you, or light, or an icon, or anything. Music, it's very helpful, and just imagine that moment, sacred moment, and just nurture it a bit. Even if it's just for 10 seconds, it's better than 10 seconds of the other kind of emotions that might pop up. All right, so if you had something, hold on to that. And then here's the second step, balance. Daily renewal on a body, mind, heart, and soul. Now, why am I saying all those four? I mean, there are many ways to categorize this. And I've done lots of, through different methodologies, everyone has a complex system. I'm very pragmatic. Maybe it's my physician training. I mean, if we can't do it in 2 minutes, like, it's not really worth it. Like, come on, let's just get through it. So body, we know our body sensations. I mean, eventually. Sometimes I couldn't tell where my body or my sensation in my body. We can tell our mind. There's this buzzing in our head, behind our eyes, right? Heart. Many times I'm going to use the 21st century word. Many times when we talk now about heart, we talk about emotions, right? So I want to make a distinguishing between emotions and soul, because I've seen sometimes we rely too much on our emotions. If it has to feel good and fuzzy and wonderful, kind of like what you're saying, that means I'm on the right track, versus sometimes we don't feel fuzzy, but we still can be all is well. So, and then the soul. So here is one interesting thing. For my framework, I'm thinking of the mind, the emotions, which is the heart and the body. I'm expanding that as a vessel of God. Many times we think of the vessel of God just the body, but as I work with people, I've noticed that the emotions have a different law, and I think was you, Joel, that you shared how emotions are contagious. I mean, animals have emotions, so I consider it part of our earthly vessel in a certain sense. Of course, they're intermingling with our higher faculties, and the same with our thoughts, because sometimes our thoughts are not God's thoughts. God's thoughts are higher than us, and how do we navigate them? So can we infuse them with our soul, and can we co-create with God, the source of light, our ultimate reality? And this is our faith. I feel like it has the best theological and philosophical framework around that there is the synergy. We cannot just extricate or intricate, like Bishop John was saying on Thursday, when someone knows someone, 9 months later, there's a baby. There's an intimacy with God that cannot be really dissected. So we say co-creation and synergy. And what I mean by soul, I'm not going to go into definitions, but some people talk about spirit, some people talk about awareness, some people talk about true self, especially in psychological methodologies. Even in Philokalia, I think was 14th century, Nicephorus the Great, that he was talking about this. Like, could be different languages that we're using. It could be awareness, contemplation, however you call it, but it's the same thing. Like, it's a human experience. So once we integrate and we do that, and how do we do this? We are trying to figure out on a body, mind, and heart and soul level. Let's try it right now. Through that space that you just experienced a few minutes ago, allow your brain to just pop in, like without thinking, what's one activity in your body that could enhance that sense that you just had before? One activity. I'll give you an example. I can run. I'm not a runner. I'm a terrible runner, but 2 minutes of running helps me a lot. Just 2 minutes. What is that one condensed activity? You don't have to be good at it. That actually would enhance your sense of presence on a body level. Just allow it to pop up if you want to take a quick note, and then do more of that whenever you have a minute. How about on a mind level? What is some activity that you love at a mind level that really brings that connection with God? It could be reading scripture, it could be listening to a podcast, reading a book, learning something new, playing a game. What is it? What is your mind? Mind is just a part of us. Maybe play. And write down whatever pops in. And if nothing comes up, we can listen to this online. You can repeat this process. New ideas are going to come. But that's the idea. Allow it to pop up. And how about emotional? Dr. Roxanne talked about it, and I use similar questions. How is my heart doing? What do I need? Usually emotions, they have a need. They communicate a need to us. What do I need? Do I need a hug? Do I need to be loved? Do I need to love? Do I need to be understood? What is it? Do I need to be assertive? Just ask. And what could help with that? And how about your soul? Again, what is that in a spiritual realm that you could do? Something that pops up. And then spend 1 minute, and if you want to journal really quickly or remember it, text it to yourself. If not, again, we can do this later. But it can be as simple as 2 minutes, like my sloppy running. And you've done this. This is not something new. You've already experienced that, whatever you've tried. I'm sure you've tried many things. All right. So time is going to be up soon. So this is the third step. I like the rhythm. And isn't our Orthodox church full of rhythm and dance and the fancy term perichoresis, the divine dance, they all come from procession. You have the big entrance, the small entrance in the liturgy, marriage, there's 3 turns around the table, baptism, right? This is amazing. So here's what I want to share. From psychological research, they've discovered, similarly to our faith, we have the prayers of the hours, morning, midday, afternoon, and night. Well, psychological research, Dr. Tom Skofhold, who wrote The Resilient Practitioner, an amazing book. I actually got to interview him on last Friday. I was a little bit starstruck. When you study a person and you teach from this book and then you get to interview him. He talked about 4 levels as well. We prepare for an activity. Let's say we see our patients. We do our thing. We separate. And then we come back. I don't know exactly his expression. And I'm like, this is exactly what we're doing all day long, through our liturgy, through our all the prayers through the day. So the invitation is this. Anchor yourself. The rhythm is to renew, think about your values. And as Christians, we think about our values in Christ and how to really align our life with that. But in the morning, the invitation is to prepare for giving. Like, let's not hit the ground running right as we wake up, because we might be in our minds, on our body, or our emotions. Can we actually take a moment? And I've shared this before I heard this expression which just stuck with me. Roberto Saggioli, he's an Italian psychiatrist. He talked about second waking up. So you wake up first, whatever, in your biological state, and then you wake up. I like to call this wake up to your soul. Like, oh, I just wake up the first time, but now I want to do my real wake up. And some people I heard, they can put a song, a music. Let's not go into our chat right away. And it can be as simple as 5 minutes in the morning when we open our eyes. And I love this idea. There's a reason why we want to put our armor of Christ on us. In spiritual care, non-denominational, they talk about this. You surround yourself with light because as you interact with people, you want to have that protection. And in my mind, like, of course, Christ said that, or Paul said that, right? Put the armor of Christ. Like, have a sense of protection when we go and exchange energies and our emotions are going to be intermingled and whatnot. Have a sense of barrier as you go in and you interact with people. And then stay in the flow, which is many times our coping strategies and whatnot. But again, think body, mind, heart, and soul. You've got some examples from the exercise before. Just do more of that. And then separate, say goodbye to the day. Actually, there's an importance of, and Dr. Skafhold, he talks about this, there's the importance of actually having a ritual of saying goodbye. Don't we do that in liturgy? Let all the cares of the world, put aside all the cares of the world. We're already doing that. So can we incorporate in our daily basis and actually say goodbye to the day, emotionally, on a mind level, and on a body level? And then I think that's my signal that my time is up. And then obviously at night, spend a few minutes, regenerate body, mind, heart, and soul. And it doesn't have to be mind-shattering. It could be as simple as, okay, I have only 5 minutes to exercise. I might run a little bit or do a few push-ups. I might take a quick walk. Things that we know that regenerate you. And with that, really I'm going to stop here. But here's the invitation. You can do this at home. Once you get this rhythm, they use in sports psychology, visualization is very helpful for athletes. So they play a sport and then they actually visualize it, doing it really well. All we could do is the invitation is to close your eyes and just imagine your day, how you prepare, how you wake up, the things that you do to regenerate, and imagine that in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, and at night. Get a sense of mastery, a sense of efficacy, so then when it's the time to do it, our brain is already primed. I'm actually encouraging people, even if you don't have any time, still imagining it. Because someone in the back of our mind, in our subconscious brain, is watching. And we get into the rhythm. We are doing it, even if it's less than perfect, and we're not procrastinating. So, with that, I thank you so much, and